Today, we are solving a classic and, let's be honest, kind of frustrating kitchen problem: how to measure in grams when all you have are spoons. This is a skill that can totally save your recipe, so let's jump right in. Okay, so picture this. You found the perfect recipe. You've got all your ingredients out, you're ready to go, but then you see it. It calls for 30 grams of sugar. And oh no, you don't have a kitchen scale. It's a moment we've all had, but hey, don't give up on that recipe just yet. Believe it or not, the solution is probably already sitting right there in your kitchen drawer. Now, it's not going to be an exact science, but a simple spoon can be a surprisingly good tool for measuring grams when you're in a pinch. Okay, now here's the really crucial part. There's a catch. A spoon is designed to measure volume. That's, how much space something takes up. Grams, on the other hand, measure weight, how heavy something is. And that fundamental difference is the whole challenge we need to figure out. So, to make this all work, we really need to get a clear picture of volume versus weight. Once you get this, turning your spoon into a pretty reliable measuring tool becomes so much easier. So think of it like this. Volume is the container, and weight is what's actually in the container. A cup of rocks and a cup of feathers take up the exact same amount of space, the same volume, but they have totally different weights. So how do we bridge that gap between space and heaviness? Well, the secret is something called ingredient density. It sounds scientific, but it's really just a measure of how tightly packed, or heavy for its size, an ingredient is. This is the key that unlocks the whole conversion. Just think about it for a second. A tablespoon of sugar. It feels heavy and compact, right? But a tablespoon of flour is super light and fluffy because it has a lot more air in it. They both take up the same amount of space in the spoon. But that sugar weighs a whole lot more. That's density in action. Now, for this to have any kind of accuracy, you can't just go grabbing any old spoon from the silverware drawer. You absolutely must use standardized measuring spoons. These are actually calibrated to specific volumes, like exactly 5 milliliters for a teaspoon or 15 for a tablespoon. So, you've got the right spoon. Awesome. But your technique is just as important. Seriously, how you scoop the ingredient can completely change the final weight, so this is all about being consistent. Let's just walk through it. First, you're going to gently scoop or pour the ingredient into the spoon until it's just a little bit overflowing. Second, and this is so important, do not pack it down, especially with something like flour. And finally, take the straight edge of a knife and just sweep it right across the top. That gives you a perfectly level measurement. All right, now that you get the theory and you've got the technique down, let's get to the really good stuff. Here is your go-to cheat sheet for converting some of the most common things you'll find in the kitchen. So right here, you can immediately see that density difference we were talking about. See how a tablespoon of dense salt is about 15 grams? But that same tablespoon of light cocoa powder is only about 8 to 10 grams. So if your recipe calls for, say, 30 grams of salt, that's roughly 2 level tablespoons. See? Easy. Oh, and a quick but really important note. For some ingredients, think oats or powdered sugar, the density can actually vary by as much as 20%, depending on the brand or even how it's settled in the container. So just remember, this method is a fantastic guide, but it is an approximation. The goal here isn't to get the absolute laser-focused perfection of a digital scale. What we're really going for is getting reliable, repeatable results every single time you cook or bake. So, just remember these 3 rules. First, always use proper standardized measuring spoons. Second, always level your scoops to get an accurate volume. And third, just be consistent. If you use the exact same technique every single time, your recipes are going to turn out consistent too. So there you have it. You're ready to tackle any recipe, scale or no scale. The only question left is, what amazing thing are you going to bake first?